So Sony says going digital only is a natural direction to adapt to consumer trends. Now, in translation, this means that they're saying we have stopped buying discs and physical media and we are now buying more digital, which means we should just stop picking them altogether. And technically saying this one's on all of us. So obviously you guys all heard the news. Sony is starting the trend on removing physical media from existence entirely, and I want to talk about it. There's a lot to cover about this topic. What actually happened, what was actually said, how did this happen, what did this mean for the future, and what we can do. So in this video I want to cover everything, every single part about it, and definitely let me know your thoughts and opinions at the end too. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Okay, so what actually happened? On July 1st, Sony announces disc production for new PlayStation games ends on January 2028. And after that, everything is digital only. So basically that means any game launching or releasing from now to January 2028 will be having a physical edition guaranteed. After that, it is going to be digital only for new games announced. And the reason this is happening is because they believe that consumer behaviors have shifted from buying physical games and now buying digital instead. And they felt that it was better to invest that money instead of building more factories or creating more discs, to invest that money elsewhere. So this is where it's happening, right? And basically this means, right, any game before 2028, we get to keep our discs for that. They'll still work just fine. And another thing I noticed was that publishers can actually still reorder prints of their physical games, but the games had to be released before January 2028. Now, that's what I know so far. If that has changed, let me know. So basically, for example, God of War Laufe is coming out next year in 2027, and let's say it's 2028, they can still order new physical editions of that game. I'm assuming for PS5 because PS6 might be digital only, but we'll still see physical out and about in January 2028. It's just, it won't be new games announced after that. And you know, when did this happen? This happens when Sony also announced the closure of the PS3 and Vita store on August of this year. So it's like two shots in one, right? And the PS3 and Vita, yes, they're old consoles, but a lot of people still have the PS3 and a lot of people have the Vita, especially the Vita being a console that's no longer available. People hold on to it very tightly, and it's just sad. You know, days before that though, Sony removed 500 or hundreds of movies, I believe, from people's PSN account because they just lost the license. And that just further proves, right, owning digitally does not mean you own anything. It just means you own the license to play or watch the content, but it doesn't mean you actually own it. And that what ownership means, right, end of the day is, let's say I don't have internet, let's say I don't have anything, can I still watch what I paid for? Let's say you buy a Honda car, right, and Honda closes down one day, that car's still gonna function. It will still take you from A to B, and you'll still be able to use that car however you wish. Do whatever you want with it, no one cares. It is your car end of the day. So this is what we want physical media to be at as well, but it's slowly shifting completely in the opposite direction of that. Sony is already doubling down on the end of physical media. So Sony has a disc factory in Austria that pressed about 24 billion PlayStation discs. And that factory is actually already being converted into a micro optics lab. So in just days after they announced the end of physical media in January 2028, they have already repurposed their largest disc factory. And this just shows this was pre-planned, right? Way before GTA 6. So before anyone says, hey, this is part of GTA 6's plan of releasing digital only, I do believe this was something going on years about. And I will explain later in the video how this came to happen. But yeah, 100% this was pre-planned by PlayStation. Now, remember earlier I explained what it means to actually own something, right? Like physical stuff. So just to put in context, right? Things can run out, right? For example, no one thought those hundreds of movies would ever go out of license, but they did. Now, the internet also discovered in Sony's term of contracts, I believe, that basically there's a 36-month clause, right? And so PSN accounts inactive for 36 months or 3 years can actually be closed, which means they'll give you an email warning and then they'll give you 6 months to respond, and then your account ends. Your digital library is gone forever. So that's what it means, right? That you don't actually own your games. It is all at the mercy of Sony, and you keeping your account is the only reason you have access. Okay, we talked about what happened, and now I want to talk more about how did we get here. Most of us have seen this coming a mile away, and honestly, it's not that surprising that Sony is starting this push considering what they've been doing for the past couple of years. Basically, this didn't start July 1st. The disc has been dying in slow motion since the PS4 era. Do you remember when discs came out? The game was actually on the disc, right? You buy the disc, you open it up, and you put the game inside your console, and that's it. It just runs. PS2, PS1, Xbox, Xbox 360, all those games you buy from discs would be all in the disc itself, right? And there was no patches needed, no internet connection. There could be day one patches or updates. However, the game was able to run without it needing an update. And then we got day one patches where basically the game would be locked, right, on day one. And this was actually done to prevent spoilers of the game where people would steal the game from stores or get their hands on it earlier, but also was to actually fix patches that they couldn't do right before the game gone gold. And so we have these day one patches. Then we got DLCs, right, where and now we know it means downloadable content, but these days sometimes DLCs can just be a huge chunk of the game, and they purposely do not add it to the main game. They want you to buy more of the game, but digitally, right? DLCs are never physical. You may be lucky to get one of those Ultimate Editions where the game comes with the DLCs installed, but most likely they want you to buy it on the store separately. And basically when that happens, right, these game discs end up becoming just installers, right? So there's a few gigabytes on the discs, right? But then you'll be blasted with 100 gigabytes to download, right? For example, GTA 6's physical edition is literally a code in the box. Nintendo's doing this too. This is not something Sony's doing, right? For example, the Switch 2, right, we start seeing more of these game key cards. And actually in the Switch 1, we had these cloud edition games where you would actually get the game, but the game wasn't on the cartridge. But now in Switch 2, we're seeing more of these game key cards where the game is not even on the card. It's literally empty. Not even a single gigabyte of the game is on the card. All it is just a door key for you to download it through the eShop. So this has been going on for a long time, right? Where we are seeing physical media isn't physical. The game is not on the disc, and the game is always going to be partial, right? We're gonna see downloads coming in, and majority of the games that we know and love, unfortunately, are that way. Where you get the game physically on disc, you put it in, excited to play, but then you have to wait at least an hour for a huge update to be installed. And what happens is every step this happened, we grumbled for a week, but we kept on buying because we really had no choice, right? We had to wait for that download to happen. We had to get the DLC because we want to play more of the games that we love. And it's funny is they say it's consumer behavior, but it's more like the consumer just had no options, right? If you don't give us the option to buy it physically, then what choice do we really have, right? So it really does feel like Sony was driving the narrative themselves, but saying at the end of the day, oh, hey, you guys bought it digitally, right? I see you guys doing it, and for example, I started buying digital games because I got tired of the additional downloads. In my head, I was like, okay, I'm buying a disc, but then I have to maybe, save more space to play the game because I need to download additional updates. And then that, took a toll on my hard drives, and I needed to upgrade my storage. So from then on, since the PS4 era, I've been buying digital only because I've seen this happening a lot, and I just didn't want to bother downloading more on top of a physical edition. So clearly this has been going on for a long time, and this is not new. Now, if you guys have been seeing this, just know that right now there's already games that you know and love that are not complete. So just be careful with the games you buy physically these days, and double check, is the game on the disc itself? If it's not, then it's most likely not going to be 2028 friendly, I would say. All right, now, ever since the news came out about this push for digital only, a lot of people have been comparing this to PC, right? PC has been digital only for 15 years and nobody's crying. And why is that? I have one word for you guys: competition. On PC, you have Steam, Epic Games, GOG, and publisher stores, right? For example, Ubisoft has their own store, the Uplay store, I believe, and then EA has their own store, the EA store. Let's say if Steam jacks the price on a game on their platform, then you just go somewhere else, right? And let's not mention, there's also these key places where you can buy Steam keys, and they're selling very cheap too, compared to the MSRP. We have like Green Man Gaming, for example, G2A, Fanatical. All these games are PC games, and you can buy them very cheap compared to even the major sellers on the PC PC platform. So you have all these options of how you can buy it, right? So yes, it is digital only, but it's like you have options, you have stores to go to buy on PC. You're not stuck to one platform. And like I said, keys, there's cheaper ways to buy these games, right? So you're not stuck to one store. And on console, there's only one store, and the platform holder sets the rules and takes the cut. The profit goes directly to them, and they have full control of what they want to price it at, and also what sales they want to push. Now, I just want to make a shout out for GOG, because GOG actually sells DRM free games, which means you can download it, you own it, and they literally can't take it back. No matter what happens, there is no option, for that game to go away. And something like GOG is not even an option on console, right? Digitally speaking. And let's talk about the sales, right? Again, so I highlighted that PC games can get deep discounts constantly because there's competing stores on there. There's competing storefronts. And we see this in the physical world, right? Where GameStop, Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, they sell physical games and they all have different prices for the same game because they want to compete against each other. Nintendo's been doing this for years, where the Mario Party games or Mario Kart, you still see them for $60 as if they just came out when they're like 10 plus years old. So I actually talked about this in my short video where I talked about the news of the PlayStation ending physical media, and I talked about an example where I can go walk into a Walmart right now and get a game like Gran Turismo for $20, right? And that's physical, that's mine. I could take it home, plug it in, and play it. But on digital, if you go on PSN, as of right now, that game is $70 forever, right? Meaning that game will be fully priced. There's nothing I can do. There's no discount code. There's no coupons I can use because it's on PSN. It's going to be $70. And that's huge. That's $50 difference right there. I could save so much money getting it physically. Why would I get it digitally? And that's the issue here, right? Digital only isn't really the true problem. Digital only without competition is the problem. And Sony can have ultimate control on how they price their games, right? And we don't want that. We don't want to have one company controlling the pricing, because not only that ruins innovation, but it also removes options for us consumers to get the game. Consumers should have options on how they want to purchase the game, and they shouldn't be limited on how they want to do that. And another thing to mention about PC storefronts versus PSN or eShop, right, is that they actually have amazing customer service. Like Steam, for example, their customer service is so, consumer oriented that they even allow you to refund games that you purchased regardless of the amount or the reason, as long as you had played less than 2 hours of it. So you can buy a game that you're unsure about, give it a chance, and if you didn't like it, refund it. You can get your money back. And there's no option for that at all in Sony's platform. You get a game, and if you open or even download it, you can't actually refund it. That's it. You can only refund if you didn't download it. I think there's a very shorter time frame than 2 weeks, I believe, as well. And you could obviously refund pre-orders, but that's so bare minimum. And if you want to push digital only, you need to have customer service to back that up. And honestly, I don't think Sony really has that as of right now. Okay, so far we talked about what happened, why did this happen, and also what does PC have that consoles doesn't at this point. But now I want to talk about the future, right? We're seeing that this has been pushed for a long time. What does this mean for the gaming future? So one thing for sure is the PSX is definitely going to be a digital only console. Because there's no disc production after January 2028 and the console is about to release around 2027, 2028, this really does mean that it's going to be digital only, right? There's no factories either that's going to be used to make discs, because they've already converted their biggest one in Austria. So yeah, Sony didn't say it, and they didn't really have to, because this was a statement in itself. And I don't want to make this video just about Sony, because this is just a trend across all platforms, right? Xbox's Project Helix, reportedly on Windows Central, they also said that it is going to look at a digital only console, but they're also exploring options to convert your disc to a digital. So there's a rumored disc to digital feature, but I'm not sure how it works, because I don't think the discs are serialized. So there's no way to really tell, if your disc is unique enough to convert that to a license. But I'm curious to see how. Maybe they can create physical, areas where you can go to a place and, they'll take the disc from you and they'll give you the code for the game. But yeah, I that's something that's going on Xbox. But for sure, Helix is also pushing, towards that digital only console. So at this point, both next-gen consoles point the same direction. This isn't a Sony story. This is an industry story. And it's not going to happen, on one platform or the other. And it's not going to end, just in Sony. It's not going to end in gaming, in fact. We are seeing this happen across all parts of the industry, and it's pushing that narrative that you will own nothing and you will like it, right? In America, we're seeing that we're struggling to buy a house, and now more and more people are renting their homes, and we're going on subscription-based models everywhere, right? Where Game Pass is also going to be fully, utilized in every household, and we'll never really own games. We'll just have to rent to play it. And, I mentioned cost, right? And how expensive it's going to be. So let's talk about that, because that's really also the hard part about the gaming future. We have seen already Xbox has increased the prices of their Xbox Series X and S, right? We're seeing their consoles hit $500, $800. There's a $900 PS5 Pro, and GTA 6 just pre-orders came out and it's $80. Memory prices are surging 50%, and there's no relief until 2028 is that's something I reported in my Haas report. And now you can't even buy games used, right? You can't lend a game to a friend. You can't grab last year's game or older games for $20, right? And that's the future we're heading towards, is that not only it's going to be expensive to buy games, it's expensive to even hold it, to have it, because you have no option to buy it and you have no option to share it. So, and consoles are also getting more and more expensive. So it definitely has been a luxury to have gaming, but not as, extreme luxury, compared to buying maybe luxury brands. But we're really heading towards that, unfortunately. And, this is really going to hurt the used market area, right? Because when digital stores are, going to be prioritized, these physical locations are just going to slowly disappear, right? If there's no physical games, there's no store. Places like GameFly or GameStop are going to be in big trouble for sure. I don't know what their plan is. I wouldn't be surprised if they're maybe also going to try to, do some legal action to prevent this from happening. And I think a lot of us will be rooting for them. But it's sad, because we'll never see these stores, flourish if we're pushing towards a digital only environment. But yeah, end of the day, gaming was already getting expensive, but with digital only, these gives corporations more control now, and us consumers, we're running out of options. And we're running out of options, and we're also running out of money. It's hard to get all these games that you want to get that are $70 and now they're $80, $100, and then console prices going up by $200, $300. And these consoles have come out years before, but now they're appreciating in price. So it's a rough time. It's definitely a rough time, and this is definitely not good news on top of what we've already experienced. So yeah, it is definitely a dark, side going on right now. Okay, so we just had a very, very grim, discussion about the future of gaming, but I want to, bring some positivity into this, right? And so I want to discuss, what do we do now? What's the next step? What can we do? What should I do? Should I run out and just buy a bunch of PSN codes? Should I sell all my digital games? A lot of people are in panic because of this. And what's funny is, though, one thing is I saw this tweet that someone replied to Sony, where it's like kids and a mother waiting for their dad to get home, and they're holding knives behind their head, and it's like, that's like what people are waiting for Sony's next tweet, which I believe they tweeted this morning. And it's chaotic, but yeah, it's so funny, because a lot of people are just waiting to just bash Sony completely, and not just Sony on the PlayStation profile, Sony themselves, the company Sony, the parent company. And they're even attacking, the Spider-Man release too, because Spider-Man's owned by Sony, and that movie is in cooperation of Sony. So I see also a lot of people commenting on the posts of Spider-Man, saying like, hey, bring back physical media. You guys, I suck for this. And a lot of people are angry in the comments over there as well. Here's the thing. This was a money decision. And at the end of the day, anything that affects, Sony as the company and their profits, they'll make a decision based off of that, which means money is the only language that will reverse it. If pre-orders dip, if PS6 sentiment tanks, which is already doing that because a lot of people are saying that the PS5 is their last generation ever, if backlash continues to hit their revenue, then the tides will change. And for sure, we are already seeing a lot of people saying that what Sony's doing right now is going to backlash a lot of all the other things they're doing, right? But for example, Spider-Man's coming out, and a lot of people are thinking of boycotting Spider-Man just to, you know, show to Sony like, hey, we do not support your decision. And we've seen, you know, success happen. Even though it wasn't intentional. For example, Concord, many people just didn't like the game, and I for one wasn't even interested either. And it was so bad, and they lost so much money, and they knew they weren't getting profit, that they just shut it off completely. They didn't just keep the game and just left it as is. They literally closed the project and went a different direction. And we even saw most of their live service games have been canceled. So they had like I believe 12 planned, and most of them already got scrapped up because they saw how Concord performed, and you know, they're taking a step back. It is true, if they're not generating revenue, it will definitely affect their decision, and you know, we can definitely make an impact on that way. So practical advice is do not panic. We have over a year until January 2028, and we also have more time to see whether or not, you know, Sony will actually take over, you know, this decision. Will they change their mind? So first and foremost, what I recommend personally is try to buy your favorite game on disc right now. Any games that you love and enjoy, you know, that you'll replay in the next 10 years, you know, not everything, only just your favorites, the ones that you feel like you'll come back to routinely, the ones that are, you know, open world games that take forever to play and you can do it. For example, Skyrim. I remember I bought Skyrim on 3 platforms because I love it so much, and you know, I know for sure one of those copies will definitely outlive, you know, Bethesda for sure. So yeah, don't go out and buy all your favorite games. I recommend buying the favorite ones, and double check too that these discs are the full game. You could find on the back of the box, or online you can probably see if the game is fully in the disc, right? There's no code in the box. There's no mandatory, you know, part 2 or part 3 installs you have to do, or installers that have to be, you know, installed onto your console or PC after the game is, you know, is in the physical disc. So make sure, buy your favorite games and check which of those games are fully on the disc. If you really want to kind of preserve games as much as possible, from now on, we need to be intentional on our purchases. With games now reaching $60, $70, $80 even, we don't need to buy openly, and you know, make sure you're buying as if you're buying a car. It sounds, you know, funny saying that because obviously a car is way more expensive, but the thought process we do when we buy something expensive, that's what I mean, right? Because you know, they say vote from our wallet, because our wallet is what's going to determine whether or not a game can be successful or not, right? Nowadays, success is measured, unfortunately, by profit, and these companies, you know, need to realize that if you provide a good price, but also if you give us a good game for that price, then we will buy it, right? And I think most companies these days are going towards the perspective of, hey, let's just give a half-baked game and charge them as if it's a full game, right? So, you know, think of that mentality. What games do you want to play? And just do some research, right? Is it your type of genre? You know, plug into AI and, you know, tell AI, hey, I like these games, this and this and this. Is this game that's coming out, is it for me? And, you know, look at reviewers. You know, I for sure will be giving updates and my own opinions on games going forward to help you guys out. You know, is this game worth it? So definitely be cautious of your purchases. And last but not least, this goes without saying, keep making noise. And it's not because, you know, everyone's out with pitchforks on Twitter and on social media, but because historically that's exactly what works, and exactly works with companies like Sony. Sony did backtrack on, you know, Concord because it didn't do well. We didn't boycott it on purpose. We just didn't like the game. But the matter of fact is, is when we do not buy something that they put out, we do not put our money towards it, it does make the company take a step back and, you know, second guess of their decisions. You know, we saw that, you know, Sony planned like 12 live service games and they canceled majority of them, and there's only like 1 or 2 now left. And you know, we even have the Horizon one coming out soon, and I don't even think that's going to do well. So definitely put the word out, keep speaking your opinion, and you know, hopefully that means something at the end of the day, right? Hopefully it gets us there, and in the past it has. So I think to be on a positive note, let's continue voicing our opinions and not put an end to physical media. Physical media is all we got in a world where everything day by day is becoming subscription based and we're losing, you know, ownership. I think this is more than just having a disc, right? Even I don't have a disc, and I still think it's important to have for other people, for preservation of games, for example. So yeah, guys, I did also cover this on my Haas report. I post them weekly on Fridays and Saturdays, basically covering everything going on in gaming news. It's my way of basically consolidating everything and making it easy for everyone to just, you know, digest what's been going on, because especially nowadays there's so much going on in a week and it's insane. And I'd rather cover everything at once than do dedicated videos, but this was a big issue and a big story nonetheless. So I really wanted to, you know, have a separate video for this and cover it deeply. But yeah, if you guys like this, please share and hit the like button, subscribe, and you know, drop your comment on what you think is going to happen next in the digital world. And I'm curious to know, you know, how many games you own digitally versus physically, because you know, if Sony is saying that is consumer behavior, I'm curious to know, is that real? Is that true? Reports say it isn't true. Actually, there's a lot of income and revenue coming from physical media that kind of in some games outweighs even their digital sales. So I'm really curious to know what you guys think, and if you guys agree with my points, you know, let me know, and if you don't, if you have different opinions, comment below, let me know. I really want to hear you guys out, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be sure to do more long form videos and give you my thoughts and opinions on things. So follow for more and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.